in your adventures with Orish, Orish, Orisha, you always have the future view. Can this be termed prophecy? As you see and are told, and you are told many things that would happen in a future time frame. So what is it? Is this like prophecy?
It would seem so, wouldn't it? But the experiences there, if you look at them, they're not really predictions. All right, okay, like this is going to happen, that going to happen. Well, in a way they are, okay? But at the same time, it's showing free will and options as we go through this experience, as we decide to be here and continue the experience. So everybody has their view of that. So basically, that's how I see it. Not so much into prophecy. No, prophecy is kind of a funny thing. You know, people get stuck with these ideas, and just like Nostradamus or whatever that, and some of the old prophets and the oracles and whatever that made predictions and what have you. And so let's come up to speed here in the movie The Matrix, the first one, where Neo, the number one guy, I forget his name, he takes Neo to he wants him to go see the Oracle. And to see, he himself wants to see is Neo the One. And so the Oracle is, you know, she's baking cookies when he goes into the house, and there's a few other things going on, and she's smoking a cigarette, and all of a sudden she looks at him and she goes, "No, it's not you." Well, it's kind of humorous, isn't it? Well, what it is, it's an opportunity. It's not about prediction or prophecy, whatever. It's an opportunity. Some people are given the opportunity because they're ready. Many are given the opportunity, but they don't take it. But Neo finally wakes up and realizes, yes, he is the one. But he had to do it, you see. He had to really do it. So it's like when the president is voted in. Is he the president when he's all of a sudden voted in? Is he? Really? No, he's not. He's got the office, he's got the title, but is he really the president? You got to prove that. That's real. But people are thinking no matter what he does, he's the president. That's nonsense. Each person has to prove themselves. They prove themselves by their deeds. That's how it was with King Arthur and the Round Table. You had to prove yourself. You had to do great deeds to be part of that, or they weren't interested. You had to prove yourself. Same thing with the boys. That's really what's going on. People they take advantage. They take for granted the real guides. And they see that too. They'll let you flop like a fish out of water. It's your choice. But you really have to prove yourself. And if you don't, you don't. You get nothing. Everything equals itself. And so the same with this, Charles. It would look as though there are, but this was part of the adventure to have these experiences for myself, so that it wasn't just the straight life here. And as we talked about aliens and UFOs, hey, I welcome whatever happens. They're supposed to have done an alien invasion a long time ago. That's the Blue Beam Project with NASA. Oh, very real. And they do certain things, but I'm for all of it. Whatever takes place is fine, because, you know, this personal self has a life of its own. And the best part will be when this personal self is totally dissolved, and I'm my complete awareness in a pure being, you see. But in the meantime, going through the process myself, have the awareness of this, but at the same time, going through the process myself. But I already see that. And so you can say that's prophecy, but it's not. I see it as the isness. And so it's just how you take these experiences. Now, Paul did the ek vidya, and he laid out some prophecy there. He did. And a lot of it didn't come to be so because, again, it was free will. He talked about that, etc. And here's Harry making himself the modern day prophet. Hey, good luck, Harry. You're stuck with yourself. Because of that, I would in no way align myself to prophecy. That's kind of like astrology and all these other things that the cabal invented. You know, these things don't exist with the birds and the bees and the animals out there. These are funny things that people decide, and they're always actually putting themselves into smaller and smaller boxes for the most part because of it, but they think that they are really achieving something. It's some kind of spiritual growth, but it's really turned into spiritual nonsense. But it's a choice, and it's an experience, and we'll see who makes it or doesn't. But yeah, prophecy is a very interesting thing, but I'll go along with the prophecy with UPS where they say, well, we're going to get it there next day air. I'll go with that. I'll go with that prophecy, but all this other stuff, and you know, people are always predicting the doom of the world. I'm not predicting the doom. Everybody else is. I'm just letting people know that people keep agreeing to their own demise, and so the prediction of doom for the world is self-evident unless people wake up and decide differently. So prophecy is very interesting, isn't it? Yes, Charles, go ahead.
We have this other comment. The beauty of the Utun is that it survives all physicality, gross and subtle, I think. However, survival on this life level seems to no longer be the survival of the fittest in inner resources, but survival of the richest. What would you say about survival of the Utun beyond creation?
This is all part of the isness, and what is referred to here with survival is that it's already a given, but you must recognize it to have real survival. That's a recognition, but the individual, the Utun, your real awareness, it's already a given, and it's just the difference between being aware of it or not. That's all. It's simply that, but it already is, because life is an isness. The isness will always be. And so it's really not a matter, that's just a figure of speech, survival beyond creation. It's all the same whether it's with creation or beyond it or whatever. These are just terms that are kind of used for the personal self, for the literal mind. But the best part is that life is an isness. It's already complete. It's already wonderful, pure, and just everything that it's just, again, it's just everything. Everything with creation and more so. And the idea here is specifying a definition, you might say, or a clarity of the difference between the two. It's just so that the individual can have an objective advantage to seeing the difference. Okay, so it's that recognition that's very important. And yes, it is very important to have that and perceive the is. But until the individual really stands real and sees what the is all about, and steps up and does something accordingly, and that it is first, and that the personal experiences that it's gone through, eventually those just evaporate because they don't have any meaning. So, again, people have jobs and things like here, that's fine. But according to the isness life is, it doesn't mean anything. That's just personal choice is all. But when you decide to view it from the is, it becomes its own particular, and it becomes everything. But survival, okay, that's just an idea that we're sharing, Charles. That's all that is, to help the individual become objective about their situation. That's all, yeah.
we'll talk about purity. Purity has many ideas to it, and because most people are literally minded, and they'll tend to understand purity as synonymous with, let's say, as white as snow. But even snow can be chemtrail contaminated. When we say purity is one of the virtues of new presentation, it conjures many images in the minds of people. I see purity against a backdrop of real intent. So what can you say about this, Duane, to clarify, to clear the air on this purity issue?
Purity is a specific, okay, and it's actually very specific. Again, I've said many times, I like purity and sincerity. Like the sun shining, it's sincere, and life is that. It's sincere, so I just see it as pure sincerity. And purity is exactly that. In the personal sense, I see that for the most part it's going to be taken for granted, which is understandable, because again, that's the idea of being Puritan or being a perfectionist, something along those lines. And I get it. These are ideas, and we're not looking for that so much so in the personal self, because the personal self survives. It can only survive in cause and effect creation. It can't survive in the real universes. So with cause and effect, there cannot be purity. So what we're referring to is the real awareness here. The isness life is. Okay, it's actually the isness life is pure. It is so pure that and so endless that just like in Paul's experiences, etc., you can only come so close to this, because again, it becomes to where you actually if you were to become part of it in the absolute sense, you would not recognize yourself at all, because that would be just like you becoming like the air of the ocean, you see. So you have to stand back a little bit, you might say, in the real universes too. You have to stand back a little bit so that you can take part consciously with what's taking place. Very interesting how this is, how life is. There's no definite here, but in cause and effect creation, the idea of purity is an aspiration, something to aspire to, because it's endless. That's how I see it. But there's no absolute with it. With the personal self, this becomes the difference. So this where again, where I wrote some of the groups about know your five bodies, simply because most people have, they have just shoved themselves together, all the five bodies together, into just being this human person only. And it's better to learn to be more objective and more objective and more objective about the cause and effect creation that you're in, so you better understand it, and according to your real awareness, because you do need this comparison and to be objective about it. Otherwise you become, again, you keep being more literalized, you become more self-convinced that you know something, and guess what? It's really the opposite. When you have the awareness that you know nothing, then you will see everything and you will act accordingly. That's the big deal too, is to act accordingly. And this is where the real guides provide that. So as long as the person has that, oh, well, I know what I'm doing, I listen to the guides and whatever, well, that's a cute story, but guess what? That isn't it either. No, not at all. So people can be self-convinced, and that's the personal self, but purity itself, no, that's a very interesting area. Realistically, and not just artificially that what people have here. You know, the religions talk about how Jesus was pure and God is pure and all these things like that. Well, it's really not so. Those are cute stories, but it really has nothing to do with the recognition of the isness. There is a difference. And so this is where, you know, I first started off as the is and it became the all is. And then I put the 3 S's and the 3 L's there as specific, because this separates it just from is to is, from IS to ISS. There is a difference, but each person has to decide to see that. So purity, it's there. I see it. This is what I focus on because it's endless. It is an endlessness, but I don't assume that I am that reality. I put this reality first, this true reality first, and I am the experiencer. I see what it is. There's a difference, you see? So again, it's not in the sense that, oh, I am pure, I focus on purity, so I am pure. No, it's not the I am thing with myself. Other people can do it. It seems to be so, but it's just kind of a funny deal when people think of that in their personal sense. They like to use their mind to use ideas. That's not it. That's really not it. Being self-convinced is a very interesting position that we have here. So, and implying and implementing the bigger picture, boy, that's the challenge, to do what others really can't see. So, yeah, so much for that. But the true purity that life is, it's this endless position of recognizing what it is and what it is providing, what it already is as the provider for all of us, as we're all in it. Yes, Charles, there you go.
I asked this question because, you know, people are going to think that people are going to associate it at one time with righteousness and all that, and think that and bring in all these values that we have on the in the human consciousness. You know, these pet ideas about being pure, just, sincere, and all the like. So they will wrap it around this word purity. Or they may look at, oh, no friends. Oh, these are people who are very pure, or they claim to be pure, but yet they do this kind of things, and they do that. So they begin because they look at this quality from a limited perspective. And when I said, for instance, purity can be determined by one's real intent. So what do you say about it?
No, that's very good, Charles. So again, all right, let's look at the real difference, as opposed to, again, the one-dimensional mind that literalizes everything. And that is that never specified us being pure, or myself, or whatever, never specified that. But yes, the personal self takes it that way. I know I've talked to many people, and they twist what I say totally around because they don't have the experience of being objective. They're one-dimensional, so they're going to go off their experience. And so that's understandable, but what I'm referring to is the isness. It's a reference, just like what I'm creating. It's a reference to, I'm not talking about myself. I see what I see. I am the universal seer, you see. I see this reality. I see how it is. I see how to support it. This is why I do what I do. And that takes agreement too, and everybody has their idea, but it's not about me, okay? I don't claim to be pure, And I don't claim that we're pure. We're just wonderful worldwide educators. That's what I specify. That's what we are. And so that locked that in with the domain name. Okay, that's life today. But in no way do I specify that. But yes, people will take that. They will start to twist it because that will be kind of a subtle sarcasm on their part, to where that, oh, you think you're this or that or whatever. And, you know, many times these are religious people because they've already got their know-it-all position, self-convinced with their reptilian god. So, of course, they're going to stand up for that. I get it. So this is the challenge, isn't it? Here's your challenge. And that is that I don't really, I kind of see the playing field and what people consider, but I don't want to think for them. And whatever they think is fine. I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Because again, and I'm fine with the confrontation, and I'm fine if they protest and hate me. Thing being is that that's fine. At least we got their attention. And so you work it from there. So when I put something out there, I do see what is going on. I don't see all of it, of course not. I can't see all of it. There are things that are taking place, and there's considerations there. I can't go over everything because I'm limited myself by what I can present here in this one-dimensional arena. But yes, get real. The thing being is that, you know, just like in the corporation, when you join the corporation, all of a sudden, oh, you learn all these things, and oh, everything was great. It's like, oh, wow, we're spiritual, and oh, we know what's going on, the rest of the world doesn't. Well, get ready for the wake up, and that is that it's still not what you personally think, because life is bigger. And so you have a whole world actually locked in discrimination, being self-convinced by themselves, thinking this or that, whatever. And that's all fine. They have the right to do it. But that's not my position. I'm just sharing what's going on here and pointing to the isness, and see who has the awareness, even though they think they do, they really don't, for the most part, about this reality. Again, it's shown in their speech and their mannerism and what they do, etc. But this is the world. It's one-dimensional. So, yeah, you want to be ready for this, because this is the challenge as you wake up. So not thinking that, oh, we're the good guys now and whatever we do is fine. I don't see that way either. I don't think in those terms that, you know, we're right and they're wrong. No, it's not about that. It's just that we're doing what we can and pointing to the is and the real guides. The real guides are the intermediates, because the isness, you're not going to just recognize and realize the isness. This is where the real guides come in as the intermediates, to show, to introduce the individual little at a time to this reality. And so it didn't really happen so much. So in a way it did, but for the most part it didn't in Paul's time, because it was too much. And so even now it becomes a whole lot more so. But this is the challenge, Charles. And yes, it's okay to consider what the world sees. We see that, but at the same time, we're not going to be doing their thinking, or are we going to imply that even though they take it that way, that we're this or that, because we're not. Because again, we're presenters. That's what we really are. We're presenting certain things. We're not absolutes like Christians and ecists and, you know, moralists and all these things. These people are self-defined. They've self-defined themselves in a one-dimensional area. No, we're not that at all. This is where I created the idea of universal seers or whatever. So, you know, we're universal. We're more than that. And that applies to the real universe. This is the fun part. And we see what's going on. We're not proclaiming, oh, this land is ours, this is mine, you know, etc. We're not proclaiming things like people do here. And again, they have the right to do it, but that's not us. So the challenge to present something real and the adventure of it, it's ongoing, isn't it? Yeah, so all these things that you're bringing up, people need to better understand. But we're not the Puritans here. We're not the right or the do-gooders. We're just having fun presenting what's real and what makes sense. Yeah, that's the best part.